Welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast, your go-to source for all things related to driving in Chicago. From navigating the city's busy streets to understanding the latest traffic laws. What are your questions? Our amazing guests are some of the best people in the business to answer and keep you ahead of the automotive curve. Am I ready to drive alone? What's that sound? Did I get ripped off? How do I protect this huge investment? We are here to help you become a safe and responsible driver on the road. So buckle up and join us in this journey through the ins and outs of driving in the Windy City. Welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast.
Hello, welcome to our Chicago podcast where we help you drive safely and confidence. Now, with this new podcast, we're going to be talking about the importance of keeping your vehicle in good conditions now that we have holidays coming up. So today we're going to have our friend Frank Valencia, expert.
Well, thanks for having me. Now is the perfect time to talk about vehicle maintenance and how to maintain your car for a long trip, and now that these holidays are coming about.
Okay, Frank, so let's get ready with the things that we need to do before we start heading out to the roads, especially now that we have these holidays coming up and there's a lot of things going on. And right here in Chicago, the weather is not beneficial for us drivers to forget these things. So what is the first thing to do when you are about to leave on a long road trip? Because it could be in the short trip too. We can have to take maintenance as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But let's talk about what is the first thing that you need to do before you hit the roads.
Well, you have to make sure all your fluid levels are filled to maximum. You got to make sure the oil change has been changed recently. Mm-hmm. You got to make sure your brakes are in working order. Mm-hmm. You got to make sure that your windshield solvent has been changed to the proper one for winter. Mm-hmm. For example, the blue one is for summer. Mm-hmm. The purple one is for winter. Oh. The purple one freezes at a much lower temperature.
Correct.
The blue one will freeze right away, and you're just going to get smeared with ice because it's going to freeze. But the purple one will keep it melted. And that's just a few things that we need to keep track of. The air in the tires, for example. Mm-hmm. When it gets cold, the air compresses, and then the tire gets more flat. Mm-hmm. It still has the same amount of air that it had before, but now the pressure is less. So then you have to add.
So these things are things that we as drivers are able to do, but is there other things that as drivers we can do? Do you recommend us to go to an auto shop to do the 360 checkup before you leave, or by you checking those things that you mentioned, it's okay? The
benefit of going to a professional is that they're not going to overlook anything because they have their own checklist that they follow. Mm-hmm. You can do everything yourself. You don't have to make that. You don't have to make that expense. You can check the levels yourself. You can check the brakes yourself. You can check the tire depth yourself. You can check the air pressure by using a tire gauge. Now, if you need brakes, you might not want to do that. You might want to take it to a professional. However, there are people that can change their own brakes.
Right.
I can change my own brakes if I wanted to.
Or oil change, perhaps?
Oil changes. They're a little messy, but it can be done by the individual.
Okay.
But these are things that, because of convenience, we much rather take it to one of these fast oil change places.
And all of these things also we can find it under owner's book manuals. The amount of air on your tires, what kind of oil you need to do if you're changing oils. We know that in a bit we're going to be talking about also what kind of things does the engine has, because in the engine we see there's a lot of reservoirs with amount of oil, amount of water, liquid stuff that we need to have in kind, right? So that's also something that we can do.
Absolutely. The good thing is that nowadays with the advent of the internet, you don't necessarily have to have your owner's manual. You can just go on the internet, look up your car, the type and model that you have, and you can look in there instead of looking at your owner's manual. But nonetheless, you can reference either the internet or your owner's manual.
I'm old school. I rather have something to read, and and maybe someone that is looking at this might feel the same way I do. But it is important to get to know your car.
Absolutely.
To the fullest.
And with that in mind, let's take a look at under the hood so we can see where things are.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we're over here already and ready to check up on the fields, all the things that we need to make sure that it's property.
Exactly.
Right? So which one, what we start with?
So we can always start with the oil. Here's where you put the oil in, and this is where you check. You would pull this out, you would wipe it, and then you check it. Wipe it first to clear it, then dip it in again.
Okay.
And then on the second dip, then you're gonna see where the oil level lies.
Oh,
the first time you don't wanna read what it says because it's all full. So then you wipe it first. Then the next time you see exactly where the oil level is.
So, and it also has a measurement like low
Exactly,
and full,
exactly.
right?
That's what I'm referring to. Yes, right there.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
right now, this is a clean oil. It's translucent. If it's black, that means you need to replace it.
Okay. That's when you do the oil change.
That you would have to do the oil change at that point.
Okay.
Now, the attendant will take this off and he'll change the filter and replenish the oil. But you don't have to do that unless you are going to do it yourself.
Okay, so I have a question, and maybe, like I always say, there's no wrong, right question or wrong, right answer. So, is it okay to check the oil when the car is warm, or it has to be the first thing to do before you go running?
You can check the oil at any point, but the car has to be off.
Okay.
The car cannot be on when you check the oil.
You will get accurate.
You won't get a reading because as the engine is turning and all the mechanisms inside the car, all the pistons are moving, all the parts are moving, they're splashing the oil all around. It's going to keep the entire dipstick wet. So you have to let it settle, and also you have to let the oil settle to the pan. Once the oil settles to the pan, then you're going to have an accurate reading. Otherwise, the oil's missing from the pan, it's all over the engine parts, and you're not going to get any reading.
Okay.
So the engine has to be off. For transmission fluid, when you're checking transmission fluid, the engine has to be on. But this one happens to have a sealed system. You can't check. You can't check the transmission oil in this car.
So that's a good thing to know when you are learning about your cars, all the things that it has, right? Because you're going to start looking for it, and there's none.
You can go on your owner's manual for that, whether you use the internet or the book itself. Now, this is the reservoir for the windshield solvent, and it actually says washer fluid or washer
liquid
only. Yeah. So then you would lift this. If you have a steady hand, you can pour it in yourself, or you can get a funnel and then just pour it into the funnel.
And this is where you put the purple?
The windshield, yes, the windshield solvent in for the winter, the purple one, and you fill it to the max, and then you just close it. And that's the end of that. This is where you put the coolant, and it actually says coolant on there. So you lift the coolant cap, and then you put the coolant in here, and once again you fill it to maximum. This you can put it with the car on. And as the engine is turning, it's going to suck the coolant in until it's full. So here you have a level that allows you to determine whether it's full or if it needs some. You no longer have to nowadays open here. 50-50 means that it's already mixed, 50% water, 50% the coolant. And then you just pour it, make sure it's in there, and then you keep an eye down here. All right, so once you fill it to the maximum, you just cap it, and you're ready to go.
And it's done.
And the coolant is done. Now, there's other things that you can check. The brake fluid. It also has a level for full. This generally you never have to put any brake fluid in. You only would put brake fluid. So here you can see the level. You can see where the level is. Now, generally, you never have to fill it. If you have to fill it, then there's something wrong with your brake system, and then you would have to take it to a service station. So then if we move on to the brakes, if you focus down here, you can see the edge of the brake pad. And if it's starting to get too thin, then you need new brakes. You can also rub your fingers on a cool. It has to be cool, otherwise you're going to burn yourself. And if you feel a roughness on the disc, then that means your brake pads are worn down too much and they're digging into the disc. You also want to check the depth. And now there's also something called the penny test. You get a penny, and then if you can see Lincoln's head, then it's 2. So we want to see Lincoln's head. So there's Lincoln's head. So you put it in, and if Lincoln's head disappears, we're good. If you can still see Lincoln's head, then there's not enough tread and you need to have your tires replaced. Okay? Here's where you would check for the pressure. You get a pressure gauge, you stick it in there, and it'll make a little sound, and then it'll show on the gauge what the pressure is at. Now, if you need air, you will replenish it with either air compressor, or you can easily go to a service station to get air. So if you follow me, you can either check your owner's manual, but most cars will tell you what the air pressure needs to be at over here. It'll tell you what air pressure this particular vehicle requires. Okay? Again, you can either go on your owner's manual, or you can go there
or you
to
can
verify,
Google it.
or you can Google it on the internet. All right, now there are certain things that you need to maintain inside the car on a long trip, especially if you're going to be in winter. You need a snow scraper or a combination one. Here you have the ice scraper, the snow brush, so you don't need individuals. You can have a one unit. Now this is a nice one because it expands, so it gets longer. We start off by brushing the snow off the top. Now, if you're parked on the curb on this side, pull the snow this way so that you don't have to travel over the mound of snow that you've created. Always pull the snow to the curbside. If you're parked on the other side, then you push the snow that way so that you don't have to go over the snow that you just took off the car, because then that's going to keep you from going. All right. You also should carry in your trunk a blanket. You should carry a good pair of boots in case you get stranded, and a good pair of gloves. You never know when your car's not
Extra
working.
jacket, maybe?
If you have an extra jacket, that's great. You never know when your car's going to break down. And if it breaks down, you're not going to have the heater on. And if the heater's not on, you're going to need to stay warm until help comes. So a blanket, good pair of boots, good pair of gloves. The gloves help you in 2 ways. The gloves will help you in case you have to shovel. Incidentally, you need a small shovel, a foldable shovel.
I think it's under there. Is it?
It's all the way in the bottom.
Oh.
If you look over here, we have a foldable shovel. Okay. We have an air compressor in case we need air in the tires. Okay, so lastly, you need some kind of abrasive so that when you shovel and there's still ice underneath the snow that you just shoveled, you're still not going to be able to get out. So we need an abrasive either by salt, sand, or kitty litter. Salt would be good, but it's only good momentarily, because when the salt starts to melt through the ice, it's no longer going to be there for traction. Sand, it's great for traction, but it's too heavy to carry. A bag of sand is about 80 pounds. Carrying an 80-pound bag, especially for an old person or someone that's not very muscular, is going to be very hard. But kitty litter is very coarse and great for abrasive. It'll give you good traction, and it's only 20 pounds for a bag. Nowadays, some of these kitty litter come in a container, a plastic container with a handle, making it so much more easier to carry. And once winter's over, you can use it for your pet, or you can save it for the next year. These are the items that you should keep in the car. And lastly, you need to make sure your lights are working, the headlights, the turn signal lights, front and back, the brake lights, and the wipers. We have to make sure that the wipers are not rough. If you run your hand and you feel roughness, or as you use your wipers, if they leave a streak, it's time to replace. Generally, we replace the wipers once a year. But if they're still good, if you don't run the car often, if you don't use your car often, they might last you a couple years. But generally about once a year. Some cars have a wiper on the back. Make sure you check the back wiper. When you check the tires, one thing that I didn't mention, also check the spare, if you have a spare. Most cars nowadays don't have a spare. You have to purchase extra after purchase. So make sure that your car comes with a spare tire, and if it doesn't, make sure you purchase it. Last thing you want to do is be out on the road without the spare tire that you desperately need. Okay? And I think that's all that we need for the long trips and winter driving.
Oh my God, we all have stories to tell, right, Frank?
Absolutely.
Do you have any stories or anecdotes
Absolutely.
about not, checking and maintenance your car, for instance, in the truck?
Yes,
road
for
trip?
example, at the time that I blew up and exploded and I died.
Oh my God, so what we're seeing now is just a ghost.
No, yeah, we had a long trip going to Florida. It was a family trip. We were going to Florida one winter. And on the road, I got a flat tire. And it was on the expressway in the middle of nowhere. So then when I went to change the spare tire was flat.
Oh my God, so was the back or the front?
It was the front left tire. So the car pulled to the left. It was a van, actually. It pulled to the left, and I had to keep the car from going to the left because it tends to pull in that direction.
Right.
And the tire was completely worn. It was completely toasted. So then when I went for the spare was flat. So I had no spare. So then we had the what do you call it?
Towing company.
Yeah, we had roadside assistance. So I called roadside assistance, and because we were in the middle of nowhere, there was nowhere that can come on time. They were telling us that it was going to take a couple of hours for somebody to come to our rescue. So while we're waiting there, the Florida Department of Transportation truck came. It's a big tow truck, and they came to our rescue. They filled up the air, and they even changed the tire for me. So we got lucky in that sense. But it's a lesson learned. Never go on a long trip without checking the spare tire. The spare tire is imperative to have working well.
Yep, very important. Actually, check everything if it's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my story, it's not as bad as you, but probably it is bad. While we were driving, we were going to visit someone in Florida, but not Orlando. So we were not going to Orlando, but we were going to Florida. It was going to be like 18-hour drive. So, they told me check this, check that, but I forgot. Something very important about checking on the oil. I wasn't paying attention. I had, I think this thing, it's my fault. But anyways, to make the story short, we were driving on the expressway going down to Florida, and guess what? My engine light came up.
Uh-oh.
And I said, okay, well, maybe I need oil, maybe I need something, right? So I pull over, kind of try to open the thing because it was kind of hot, which I should have done that. But somehow I managed, I open, and I start seeing like smoke coming out from the engine. I said, oh my God. So, me and my not being expert about it, so I was trying to,
Fan it away.
Find a way to cool off because it was smoke coming out, and it smelled like burned.
Uh-oh.
So, what do I have to do? I have to wait, and I kind of called someone to help out and told this person what was going on with, and he said, you know what? I think your engine just died. I said, why? What do you mean?
You blew the engine.
Because I did not put any oil in the engine. And the oil that was burning, it was the leftovers.
Oof.
So I ruined my vehicle. Yes, I did. I had to call, someone to tow it. It was, the good thing is that it happened in the daytime. Because nighttime, imagine, like,
Oh,
it's
yes.
kind of scary.
That's when it happened to me at night.
Exactly. So it was during the day. So, I had my emergency flashers, and my hazard lights are going on. Nobody stopped to help. But I did get help from the towing company, because you had AAA and they come and
Yeah.
and they told me, you know what, you need to call someone to pick you up because they cannot take me. They just towed the car, and I had to call someone to pick me up.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
So,
not good.
stories.
Yes, that's a bad one because now you have to buy a new engine.
No, well, I had to buy a new car because it was just done.
It wasn't worth it. Yeah.
No, it wasn't worth it fixing it, so it was done. So, but I did learn my lesson. I'm not gonna say that because I was young, but I should have checked. So, with this new podcast that we just did, I think we will help a lot of people, the ones that listen, or the ones that will listen to the podcast about we need to take care of those.
Heed our warning.
Yep.
Learn by our mistakes.
Yes.
Not by your own.
So if you're listening to us, and if you have any experience or any type of anecdotes that want to tell or share with us, do it. And in there, and what do you call it? The messenger, or what do you put in the YouTube channel? Write something in there. Tell us your story. Tell us how the life taught you that you gotta be cautious about maintenance in your car, your vehicle. It's very important. Your vehicle can last you forever if you take care of it. Period.
This is true.
So, with that said, do you want to say something?
I'm good. I think we covered all the topics.
All the topics, and we were happy to talk about maintenance of our vehicle. So, everyone, have a great holidays. Stay safe, stay warm. Wherever you are, be safe. Until next time.
Bye-bye.